All right, shalom, everyone. Welcome to the Ruach Haqodash Ministries. Now, this video is very important. This is about the destruction and punishment, the judgment and curse of King Saul. Before we start, I do want to pray first is to protect everyone watching this video so that they hear truthfully the word and did not get distracted by any demons or demonic spirits and any flesh. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on the earth as it is in the heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the esteem forever. Amen. All right, so we're going to go through this. This is so important, so watch it all the way through. And I'm going to put all the verses up there for you. I'm going to say the title of each part so that you know why King Saul got punished, why he got cursed by Yah, and why his disobedience inevitably led to his destruction. So the first part is Samuel commanded Saul to wait 7 days before their burnt offering. 1 Samuel 10:8. So Samuel said, "Go down ahead of me to Gilgal." Samuel's talking to Saul. "I will surely come down to you to sacrifice burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, but you must wait 7 days until I come to you and tell you what you are to do." So then the next part is Yahuah gave Saul a changed heart to fulfill the prophecy. So this is 1 Samuel 10:9. As Saul turned to leave Samuel, Yahuah changed Saul's heart, and all these signs were filled that day. So Yahuah changed his heart to prepare him to fulfill the prophecy. Now, if some of you are wondering, what prophecy is that? We're going to go to that right now. This is Yahuah. This is the prophecy here. Yahuah says that he has blotted out the Amalekites for their oppression towards Israel, and he was going to avenge them. So Exodus 17:14, then Yahuah said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven." The next verse that explains this, Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 17. Remember what the Amalekites did to you along the way when you came out of Egypt. When you were weary and worn out, they met you on your journey and attacked all who were lagging behind. They had no fear of Yahuah. When Yahuah your Eluah, meaning mighty one, gives you rest from all the enemies around you in the land he is giving you to possess as an inheritance, you shall blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. It said, do not forget. Now we're going to go hundreds of years later. So Yah prophesied to them, said, do not forget. And now is the time of King Saul to fulfill this. So then let's read back again that verse we read before about Saul. So this is about, again, Yahuah giving Saul a changed heart to fulfill the prophecy we just read. 1 Samuel 10:9. As Saul turned to leave Samuel, Yahuah changed Saul's heart. And all these signs were fulfilled that day to fulfill that prophecy. And that was the changed heart to fulfill the prophecy. So now let's go to when King Saul starts making mistakes. So Saul disobeys and does a burnt offering without Samuel. Now remember in 1 Samuel 10:8, Samuel told, "Go down ahead of me to Gilgal. I will surely come down to you to sacrifice burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, but you must wait 7 days until I come to you and tell you what to do." So he was supposed to wait 7 days. Now we're here. Saul disobeys and does a burnt offering without Samuel. You just read he was supposed to wait to learn what to do. So 1 Samuel 13, verses 8 through 13. He waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So he said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings." And Saul offered up the burnt offering. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived. And Saul went out to greet him. "What have you done?" asked Samuel. Saul replied, "When I saw that the men were scattering, and that you did not come at the set time, and that the Philistines were assembling at Michmash, I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought Yahuwah's favor, so I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering." "You have done a foolish thing," Samuel said. "You have not kept the command Yahuah your Eluah, mighty one, gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. So that lets you know, because of Saul's disobedience right there, this is the first indication from what we're discussing, where he is saying that he has lost favor with Yahuah because of disobedience and due to fear. Because he was scared of the Philistines, went into fear and disobeyed. Now, this is also Saul's punishment for disobeying Yahuah. 1 Samuel chapter 13, verses 13 through 14. You have done a foolish thing, Samuel said. You have not kept the command Yahuah your Elohim mighty one gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But now your kingdom will not endure. Yahuah has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler of his people, because you have not kept Yahuah's command. So due to his disobedience, he's already being told that he lost his position as being king over Israel. And it's talking about another will be appointed ruler. And I'm sure some of you may know exactly who that is, but we're going to get into that later. I do want to emphasize in 1 Samuel 13:12, when King Saul said, I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought Yahuwah's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering. So because he was afraid that the Philistines were coming, he decided to be disobedient instead of put his trust in Yahuwah. And we know 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 says, For Yahuwah does not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. This means that if Yahuwah gives us power, love, and a sound mind, then the love he gives us is his love. Love of Yahuwah is obedience. Saul disobeyed and did not walk in Yahuwah's perfect love, which is obedience, so he was disobedient. Also, 1 John chapter 4, verse 18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. And you see how it says, because fear has to do with punishment. Saul had fear, remember, because he was afraid of the Philistines coming down. So he was disobedient. And what did that bring? Yah's punishment on him. All the verses in different books come together. And then the next part, commanded by Yahuah, Samuel commands Saul to destroy the Amalekites, right? To fulfill that prophecy all the way back in Exodus chapter 17, verse 14, and Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 17. So this is 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 3. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. All of the Amalekites were supposed to be destroyed. Everything, even their cattle, all of their animals. This command was a fulfillment of a vow based on Amalek's attack on Israel, with Yahuah promising to blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven in Exodus 17:14 and Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 17. And now this part is King Saul attacks the Amalekites. So 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 7 through 8. Then Saul attacked the Amalekites all the way from Havilah to Shur, near the eastern border of Egypt. He took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and all his people he totally destroyed with the sword. So remember, Yahuah commanded that King Saul kill all the Amalekites and all their cattle. He was not supposed to spare anyone. But we just read that he took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive. So then here's the title, King Saul disobeys Yahuah's command to destroy all of the Amalekites. So this is 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 9. But Saul and the army spared Agag and the best of the sheep and cattle, the fat calves and lambs, everything that was good. These they were unwilling to destroy themselves, but everything that was despised and weak they destroyed. I want to explain something that's very important. Everything that looked good to them they kept, even though Yah told them to destroy it. They chose worldly gain over Yahuwah. Mark chapter 8 verse 36 says, what shall it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? So they chose worldly gain and essentially trading their soul for worldly gain over what Yah had commanded them. Here's another passage here. Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 20. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, which is what they did, King Saul, which is why he got into this trouble, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. So They were supposed to follow Yahuwah's commands, which would have allowed them to store their treasures up in heaven. But instead, they chose worldly gain and to store their treasures on earth. And then that's why Saul fell into this punishment. The next part, Yahuwah said he regretted making Saul king. This is 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 10 through 11. Then the word of Yahuwah the Father came to Samuel. I regret that I have made Saul king, because he has turned away from me and has not carried out my instructions. Samuel was grieved and cried out to Yahuwah all that night because Samuel loved Saul. Samuel was the one who anointed Saul, right? So I'll put that verse here on how Samuel anointed Saul. So Samuel anointed Saul. Like, he really loved Saul. He was grieved by that. Where Yahuwah even said to Saul, how long are you going to mourn for Saul? Even Yah saw that Samuel was mourning about Saul. He really loved Saul, but he loved Yahuwah more. So Samuel had to do what Yahuwah commanded him to do. So now Saul faces extreme punishment. And this is a very important part of this story. Yahuwah curses Saul with a demon. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 14 through 15. Now the spirit of Yahuwah had departed from Saul for his disobedience. I'm just saying that part. So now the spirit of Yahuwah had departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from Yahuwah tormented him. Saul's attendant said to him, see, an evil spirit from Yahuwah is tormenting you. Now hold on, guys. This is very important because a lot of people don't understand this. It said that Yahuwah, an evil spirit from Yahuwah, tormented him. It was sent from Yahuwah. It's like, well, wait, an evil spirit sent from Yahuwah. So don't be deceived by this, guys. It doesn't mean that Yahuwah is like friends or on the same side as the devil and trying to destroy us. No, it means that Yahuwah controls the demons as well. This is very important. It says Yahuwah sent a demon. That should tell you that Yahuwah is truly in control of Satan and all of the demons. That should let you, if you're being obedient to Yah, immersed in the Messiah Yahusha, have extreme joy, because that means that Yah, who says that you are protected, is in control of what the devil can and cannot do. You are protected. Amen. All right, the next part is because King Saul is now being tormented by a demon, King Saul searches for someone to play music to stop the demon from tormenting him. So this is 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 16 through 17. Let our leader command his servants here to search for someone who can play the lyre, which is like a harp. He will play when the evil spirit from Yahuwah comes on you, and you will feel better. So Saul said to his descendants, find someone who plays well and bring him to me. And this is the next part. David is called to play the lyre for King Saul. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 18 through 23. One of the servants answered, I have seen a son of Jesse of Bethlehem who knows how to play the lyre. He is a brave man and a warrior. He speaks well and is a fine-looking man, and Yahuwah is with him. Then Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, send me your son David, who is with the sheep. So Jesse took a donkey loaded with bread, a skin of wine, and a young goat, and sent them with his son David to Saul. David came to Saul and entered his service. Saul liked him very much, and David became one of his armor bearers. Then Saul sent word to Jesse, saying, allow David to remain in my service, for I am pleased with him. Whenever the spirit from Yahuwah came on Saul, David would take up his lyre and play. Then relief would come to Saul. He would feel better, and the evil spirit would leave him. So David was called to play the lyre, the harp, for Saul, and every time he would play it, the evil spirit would leave him, and he would feel better. That was the anointing that Yah put on David. Very important part about David. There's some more important parts about David coming in, so keep watching this video all the way to the end. So the next part is Samuel addresses Saul and rebukes him for not killing all of the Amalekites' livestock as commanded. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 23. For rebellion is as the transgression of witchcraft. And you've heard me talk about this on this video. Now you have context finally to that. For rebellion is as the transgression of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of Yahuwah, he has also rejected you from being king. So he was saying that your rebellion is literally as bad as the transgression of witchcraft, and your stubbornness to not be obedient is as bad as the transgression of iniquity and idolatry. So because of that, Yah has rejected him as being king. And this was a serious transgression because this was disobedience towards the prophecy and promise that Yahuwah gave to the Israelites hundreds of years before when they had come out of Egypt. So this was a promise that was hundreds of years in waiting until King Saul was appointed to fulfill it. And then King Saul chose to disobey and not kill all of the Amalekites. It was an idolatrous rejection of Yahuwah's prophecy and promise to the Israelites. So King Saul even knew that he was wrong. So here's the next section. Saul admitted he transgressed. And by the way, this will all be available in a document for you to download, which will have all the like sections where I said Saul admitted he transgressed, and all these things that I'm saying so that you can really have all the different sections for you. Praise Yah, not me. Let's continue. All right. So Saul admitted he transgressed. So this is 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 24 through 31. Then Saul said to Samuel, I have transgressed. I violated Yahuwah's command and your instructions. I was afraid of the people, and so I gave in to them. Again, how fear brought disobedience. Now I beg you, forgive my transgression and come back with me so that I may worship Yahuwah. But Samuel said to him, I will not go back with you. You have rejected the word of Yahuwah. Yahuwah has rejected you as king over Israel. As Samuel turned to leave, Saul caught hold of the hem of his robe and it tore. Samuel said to him, Yahuwah has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to one of your neighbors, to one better than you. He who is the esteem of Israel does not lie or change his mind, for he is not a human being that he should change his mind. Saul replied, I have transgressed, but please honor me before the elders of my people and before Israel. Come back with me so that I may worship Yahuwah your Eluah, meaning mighty one. So Samuel went back with Saul, and Saul worshiped Yahuwah the Father. So right now I'm going to explain who Yahuwah was addressing in 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 27 through 28. So when it was going over that section that said, Yahuwah has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to one of your neighbors, to one better than you. The one that the kingdom of Israel was going to be given over to was David from the tribe of Judah. And then now y'all hear about, oh, King David. Here's the context. And this is now the second time Samuel informed, from what we've been reading, where Samuel informs Saul that because of his disobedience, there will be another person appointed as the king of Israel. And the first one was in 1 Samuel 13:14, and the second one now here in 1 Samuel 15:28. This is why you should not lean on your own understanding. As it says in Proverbs 3:5, trust in Yahuwah the Father with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And then also, because Proverbs 14:12, there's a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. Saul sought to lean on his own understanding about storing his treasures on the earth and storing the best animals from the Amalekites and King Agag instead of listening to Yah. So that way he thought would be right for him to do led to his destruction. And now let's go to the next part. So this is later on where Saul is trying to destroy David, right? Remember, we just read those verses sharing how someone else is going to take his throne. So this is 1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 10 through 11. The next day, an evil spirit from Yahuwah came forcefully on Saul. He was prophesying in his house while David was playing the lyre, as he usually did. Saul had a spear in his hand and he hurled it, saying to himself, I'll pin David to the wall. But David eluded, meaning escaped him twice. The next passage is 1 Samuel chapter 19, verses 9 through 10. But an evil spirit from Yahuwah came on Saul as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand. While David was playing the lyre, Saul tried to pin him to the wall with his spear. But David eluded, meaning escaped him, as Saul drove the spear into the wall. That night, David made good his escape. The next passage is 1 Samuel chapter 19, verses 11 through 17. Saul sent men to David's house to watch it and to kill him in the morning. But Michal, David's wife, warned him, if you don't, and Michal is Saul's daughter, by the way, King Saul's daughter. But Michal, David's wife, warned him, if you don't run for your life tonight, tomorrow you'll be killed. So Michal let David down through a window and he fled and escaped. Then Michal took a household idol and laid it on the bed, covering it with a garment and putting some goat's hair at the head. When Saul sent the men to capture David, Michal said, he is ill. Then Saul sent the men back to see David and told him, bring him up to me in his bed so that I may kill him. But when the men entered, there was a household idol in the bed, and at the head was some goat's hair. Saul said to Michal, "Why did you deceive me like this and send my enemy away so that he escaped?" Michal told him, he said to him, "Let me get away. Why should I kill you?" So she obviously did that to avoid the punishment. And then the next passage is 1 Samuel chapter 23, verses 19 through 29. The Zephites went up to Saul at Gibeah and said, "Is not David hiding among us in the strongholds at Horesh, on the hill of Hiklah, south of Jessamon? Now, your majesty, come down whenever it pleases you to do so, and we will be responsible for giving him into your hands." Saul replied, "Yahuah favor you for your concern for me. Go and get more information. Find out where David usually goes and who has seen him there. They tell me he is very crafty. Find out about all the hiding places he uses and come back to me with definite information. Then I will go with you. If he is in the area, I will track him down among all the clans of Judah." So they set out and went to Ziph ahead of Saul. Now David and his men were in the desert of Mam, in the Arabah south of Jeshimon. Saul and his men began the search. And when David was told about it, he went down to the rock and stayed in the desert of Mam. When Saul heard this, he went into the desert of Mon in pursuit of David. Saul was going along one side of the mountain, and David and his men were on the other side, hurrying to get away from Saul. As Saul and his forces were closing in on David and his men to capture them, a messenger, meaning a soldier, came to Saul saying, "Come quickly. The Philistines are raiding the land." Then Saul broke off his pursuit of David and went to meet the Philistines. This is why they call this place Salah Hamedlakoth. And David went up from there and lived in the strongholds of En Gedi. So that last passage right there showing that Saul was closing in, was going to kill him, but David escaped. Now, if David was supposed to be the king of Israel, King David, then we know that Yah wasn't going to let that happen, and that's why it didn't. So the next part is David said King Saul would die. This is 1 Samuel chapter 26, verses 7 through 11. So David and Abishai went to the army by night, and there was Saul lying asleep inside the camp, where his spear stuck near his head. Abner and the soldiers were lying around him. Abishai said to David, "Today Yahuah has delivered your enemy into your hands. Now let me pin him to the ground with one thrust of the spear. I won't strike him twice." But David said to Abishai, "Don't destroy him. Who can lay a hand on Yahuah's anointed and be guiltless? As surely as Yahuah lives," he said, "Yahuah himself will strike him, or his time will come and he will die, or he will go into battle and perish. But Yahuah forbid that I should lay a hand on Yahuah's anointed. Now get the spear and water jug that are near his head, and let's go." So David spared him out of obedience to Yahuah, knowing that he was not supposed to, but he knew that his time was coming. All right, this next section is about Saul knowing that the Philistines were coming, and because he didn't hear from Yah, he then went and practiced witchcraft. So this section is called Saul Disobeys and Practices Witchcraft. This passage is 1 Samuel chapter 28, verses 3 through 18. Now Samuel was dead, so at this time Samuel passed away, and all Israel had mourned for him and buried him in his own town of Ramah. Saul had expelled the mediums and spiritists from the land. The Philistines assembled and came and set up camp at Shunem, while Saul gathered all Israel and set up camp at Gilboa. When Saul saw the Philistine army, he was afraid. Terror filled his heart. He inquired of Yahuah, but Yahuah did not answer him by dreams or Urim or prophets. Right, because of his disobedience, Yahuah turned his face from him. Saul then said to his attendants, "Find me a woman who is a medium, so I may go up and inquire of her. There is one in Endor," they said. So Saul disguised himself, putting on other clothes, and at night he and two men went to the woman. "Consult a spirit for me," he said, "and bring up for me the one I name." But the woman said to him, "Surely you know what Saul has done. He has cut off the mediums and spiritists from the land. Why have you set a trap for my life to bring about my death?" Saul swore to her by Yahuah, "As surely as Yahuah lives, you will not be punished for this." Then the woman asked, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" "Bring up Samuel," he said. When the woman saw Samuel, he cried out at the top of her voice and said to Saul, "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul." And the king said to her, "Do not be afraid. What did you see?" And the woman said to Saul, "I saw a spirit ascending out of the earth." "What does he look like?" he asked. "An old man wearing a robe is coming up," she said. Then Saul knew it was Samuel, and he bowed down and prostrated himself with his face to the floor. Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? I am in great distress." Saul said, "The Philistines are fighting against me, and Yahuah has departed from me. He no longer answers me, either by prophets or by dreams. So I have called on you to tell me what to do." Samuel said, "Why do you consult me now that Yahuah has departed from you and become your enemy? Yahuah has done what he predicted through me. Yahuah has torn the kingdom out of your hands and given it to one of your neighbors, to David, because you did not obey Yahuah or carry out his fierce wrath against the Amalekites. Yahuah has done this to you today." So, all right, the next part. Samuel tells Saul that he is cursed and will die in battle. This is 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 19. Yahuah will deliver both of Israel and you into the hands of the Philistines. And tomorrow, you and your sons will be with me. And you know Samuel's dead, which means that they will be dead. Yahuah will also give the army of Israel into the hands of the Philistines. So this next section, Saul dies in battle. This is 1 Samuel chapter 31, verses 1 through 6. Now the Philistines fought against Israel. The Israelites fled before them, and many fell dead on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines were in hot pursuit of Saul and his sons, and they killed his sons Jonathan, Aminadab, and Malchishua. The fighting grew fierce around Saul, and when the archers overtook him, they wounded him critically. Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and run me through, or these uncircumcised fellows will come and run me through and abuse me." But his armor bearer was terrified and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. When the armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he too fell on his sword and died with him. So Saul and his 3 sons and his armor bearer and all his men died together that same day. This proves what Samuel told Saul. This curse did come to pass and on his sons. And that is the destruction and curse and demise, death of King Saul due to disobedience. Now, here are the final lessons of this story. When Yahuah gives you something, you are a steward of that status, asset, or kingdom, meaning he has called you to be a steward of it. Yahuah still remains the owner of it. Yahuah still remains the owner of it. You are the steward owner, meaning that you are the steward and you have the possession of it, but it is truly Yah's asset. He truly owns it. Always be humble and always be obedient, for there are physical and spiritual consequences for your actions. Now, here are 3 passages in the word of Yahuah that really explain these. Here's Job chapter 1, verse 21. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. Yahuah gave, and Yahuah has taken away. May the name of Yahuah be praised." This is just to emphasize that Yahuah gives, and because he's truly the owner, he can take away, which is what happened to King Saul. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 6 through 7. Yahuah kills and brings to life, as we saw. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. Yahuah makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and he exalts. So he brought King Saul low because of his disobedience, and he said that he was going to exalt David to be king. Also, Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 39. "See now that I myself am he. There is no Eluah, mighty one besides me. I put to death and I bring to life. I have wounded and I will heal, and no one can deliver out of my hand." So if you're under the protection of Yah through obedience, no one can take you out of Yah's hand. And that was also said from Yahusha the Messiah himself about Yahuah, that no one could take you out of his hand. Put that verse here. And if you're not obedient, Yah will allow you to succumb to your actions. All right, shalom, y'all. I hope this message really serves you well in Yahusha and in the truth. And remember, this passage will be, all of these verses will be available in the link to download below. And you'll have access to this to remember that if you want to share with other people and spread the word of Yahuah yourself, right? It's not only me. My goal is to help you to also spread the word so that you can also be fishers of mankind and to bring people to the truth, which is the Messiah Yahusha and the Father Yahuah. Praise Yahuah, Baruch Haba B'Shem Yahuah, which means favored is he who comes in the name of Yahuah. Amen. And I encourage all of you to keep saying Baruch Haba B'Shem Yahuah, because it says when people start to say that, then Yahuah will return. So keep saying this every day. Shalom.